we're going to do some things a little different this time. We're going to hand out, we have the Carters and Deanna and Barry, and they're going to hand out a form to you. And it starts with acid reflux, and it ends with a white tongue. And what I want you to do during the Daniel fast, not during your church service, but I want you to go through and either highlight or check every symptom that you have before you start the Daniel fast. I think a lot of times when people do the Daniel fast, they're not doing it so much with a purpose. And this is going to show you just how many things disappear in the 3 weeks, the 21 days. That's all it is, 21 days. And during that change, you're going to start checking off things. Now, this guy, as most of you know, overcame multiple sclerosis in 2001.
Praise the Lord.
He was diagnosed in a walker, okay? And we've told that story many times, but that's not the only thing that disappeared. Probably a third of this list is things that we had, all right? And we started out doing it with the purpose of getting rid of MS, but the funny thing was, so many of these other things disappeared as well. So our thought process was, well, maybe we should stay on this thing, okay? So they should be handing it out to you, and this will be a really good exercise for you to see. Put a date next to it as the symptom disappears, and then I'm going to ask for testimonies in a few weeks, okay? And just see what's happened to you guys. All right, we're going to tell you a little bit about how we got the Lifestyle Center. It is totally a miracle of God.
Amen.
Do you want to start?
I think we should start with the sickness that I had,
Okay.
and how that led up to it. In 2001, I was working away from home, and it was down in Fort Myers, so it was 2 hours and 15 minutes away. So we decided that I would stay there for the week, and then come home on the weekends. And it was only for 3 months, so that was doable. And during that time, I started getting numbness down my left side, and I started getting my right leg wasn't working properly. And so I would walk with a limp. Sometimes it would give out, and I'd catch myself, but I'd never fell. And so we figured on the weekend that might as well go up to the emergency room, find out what's going on here. You know, the symptoms kept on coming faster and faster. And throughout the story, by the time I was done in the hospital, I was in a walker. So I'm going to turn it over to Sherry to tell her part of it.
So basically, things became very difficult when we tried to change our lifestyle. We didn't know, we had never heard any of these things. We didn't know how to do it. We never heard of raw food.
Well, tell them, Sherry, about what happened, and you prayed for wisdom.
In the hospital,
Right.
I was on church staff at another church, and the only thing I brought to the hospital with me was a Bible. And I just didn't call my church family. I didn't do anything. I was so panicked when he was in the hospital. The doctors told us he either had cancer or MS, and to wait 8 weeks, and then they'd let us know what he had. So I guess I'm not the type to just sit back and wait. So I started looking into classes. I started looking online. And in 5 days, this Hallelujah diet came at us.
And she is a
in
researcher.
4 different ways.
She is a researcher. Every available thing out there she was doing.
So we went up in July of 2002 to get trained. And we had been doing almost a Daniel fast. And we started to feel like we needed to go to North Carolina to get trained. We became trained health ministers in July 2002, and we started a support group in Brandon for 10 years. We held a support group, and we had people come from all over the place. Many people traveled hours and hours to come to these potluck support groups. Then we started in let's see, his MS symptoms went away at 7 months. They started to disappear. They didn't fully go away until 1 year. We had to do this diet diligently for 1 year, and then he could honestly say he had no more symptoms.
A lot of people would ask, well, why did you stay on it if it took that long to receive any rewards? And I said, well, my arthritis went away that I had in my hands and feet. The warts fell off my neck. No more headaches. A lot of energy. You know, when you put the proper food into your body after you eat, you should have energy. It should be boosting your system. And a lot of times when we eat cooked food or a lot of the things we shouldn't eat, by the time you're done, you want to fall asleep. How many people want to go to sleep after eating a big meal? It shouldn't be that way. This should be nourishing you. It should be filling you full of energy.
So after a while, we kept hearing people say, you know, I really want to do what you're doing, but I don't know how to do it. And then the Lord started to show us that we needed to purchase a property. The picture that you're looking at is the picture of the house that we purchased in Plant City in 2004. And we had no money. We had no money in the bank. We're going, Lord, this is crazy. But what was really funny was that the Lord took money out of my equation, out of my brain. I totally forgot we didn't have money. And we started looking for a property. And we found...
Talk about blinders, huh?
Yeah, talk about blinders. So, and I know it had to be from the Lord because I know me. That would have been the first thing. What are you, crazy? We don't have any money. Why are we looking? Well, we found the perfect house, we thought, in Thonotosassa. And it was a beautiful house up on a hill, wraparound porch, just, I thought, perfect. And we had met there in separate cars. We drove up, and we had gone to see the house 4 times. The 4th time, we had called the lady and told her we wanted to come back with like an inspector, home inspector. And she told us to come 3 days later. We didn't want to come the 3 days later because I thought you lose properties if you don't jump on it, you know, especially in today's market. You know, so I said, we really need to go. And he goes, well, we have no choice. We have to wait. So we pull up in separate cars because we came after work. And when we pulled up, the lady answered the door, and she goes, oh, didn't you get my message? We said, what? And she goes, I sold it yesterday. And we're like, why didn't you call us? Well, right there and then, we thought that we would give up on this dream. Mm-hmm. We were both so discouraged and disappointed that we said, we must not have heard from God clearly. So we get in our car, and the first thing I always do, and he does too, when we get in the car, we turn on Christian radio. And the radio announcer said, don't let disappointment stand in the way of God's vision for you.
That is all we heard.
And that was all we heard. So we talked to each other and we go, oh my gosh, it's the wrong house. We have to find the right house. Long story short, we find the house. He finds it. And
yeah, we gave the realtor parameters to go by, and this is out of the parameters.
Right. So he finds the house, and he pulls up on it, and there was this little tiny ranch house at the beginning of a 900-foot driveway. And I look at him, and I go, are you daft? We won't be able to fit more than 2 couples in there. And he goes, no, it's not that house, right? And so we drive down, and there's a big gate, and this one says, we're going to knock on the door. And I go, well, that's not, no, people have shotguns. You know, we shouldn't do that. You know, so he knocks on the door. When the guy opened the door, all I can tell you is this flood of emotion and flood of, this is the house. The Lord was impressing upon us both. This is the house. I didn't even have to see the house. I walked through it, and we were so excited. The next thing that happened was we had to get financed. Well, we put in all our paperwork, and this was the time when the market was doing these creative things, and they were, I don't know exactly how to describe it. Yeah. Creative financing. And the guy called me from the bank and he says, "You got approved." And we're like, "We got approved for that house?" And I went to call Dave. I'm so excited. I can't wait to tell him. And I call him up and I go, "Guess what?" And he goes, "We got the house." And I go, "The bank called you?" And he goes, "No." He says, "I was cleaning out this car and there was a little shiny piece of paper on the floor, and it was from Malachi 3. And it said, 'Test me and see if I don't pour out the blessings upon you.'" Okay, and we're like, wow. I says, "That's amazing." So then, just to tell you, when God wants something done, he does it.
Amen.
We had the man who owned this house, loved this house, thought he'd be there forever. He went and he replaced all the carpet after we signed the papers. He bought us a brand new washer and dryer. He bought us a brand new stove. He just made the house absolutely perfect for us, anything we needed. He bought us a brand new refrigerator for out by the pool area. And then we found out that there was 7 bedrooms and only 4 bathrooms. So we had to add a couple bathrooms.
I didn't think that was a problem.
And so then what we did is we called a plumber, and he said to us, he said, "This is an amazing ministry that you want to do." He goes, "I'm going to do all the plumbing for just the cost of the goods." So you're talking...
That was a big deal.
A very big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot another part. When we signed papers on the house, the realtor who we went to church with, but we really didn't know very well, came up to us and said, he handed us an envelope. And in the envelope was a check, his commission check, signed over to us, which means he paid the taxes, but he gave us the gift, and he said, "Go furnish that place." He goes, "It's an amazing ministry you're going to do." So we did this ministry for 13 years. We've actually done the ministry since 2002. But as far as the Lifestyle Center, we gave it up in 2015. Our contract was done. But God's not done with us. He's redirecting us a little. We're going to be doing more public speaking. And we're actually looking for a temporary place that we can do retreats maybe once every quarter. So that's what God's kind of doing with us right now.
I want to back up to the Lifestyle Center just for 1 second. After being that long with people in your home and having no privacy, I mean, we'd have 10, 12 people at a time. And so you don't rest. You go to bed at night, you're wondering about the people, So, and their health. So we'd have devotions in the morning, and as weary as you can get sometimes, during those devotion times, there we go, we would hear stories from people that would just rebuild our faith, rebuild our energy, and it was just so worth it.
Okay, next slide. The Lord gave me this in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock. Teaching original rules about health. The initials is Torah. Now, I don't know about you, but when we first heard about Torah, you might have said, "What? What are we going to do?" But we're going to show you today how God is very concerned about his people. He's very concerned about our health and how we take care of it. And he gave us all the rules, just like he gave us the 10 Commandments. He gave us rules to keep this body running the way it's supposed to. Genesis 1:29, "I've given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat," or translation, food. Okay? So God creates man. The very next thing he does, he tells us what to eat in Genesis 1:29. And he backs some of it up in Leviticus by giving us a few more rules about what's kosher, what to eat, what not to eat, what kind of fish to eat, what kind of meat to eat. Over time, we learn that God gave us rules for our quality of life, and that's the 2 places that you can find it. Next. This is a biblical chart that shows it's from Genesis 9:3, and it shows that what happens when God gives us meat. The first 10 generations before the flood, man lives approximately 912 years. Okay? Now, we're not saying that God said you couldn't eat meat. We're not saying that. Or that he used meat to cause the second phase of this. However, this is the reality of what happened. After the meat was added, the lifespan is shortened down to about 70 years. And science proves this biblical record. So it's something to think about. You know, did he use the meat to do it? Did he not use the meat? Or did he just speak it? We know that he can speak us into existence. So maybe he just changed the rules because people were living too long and they were becoming a little bit too evil. Next. Yahweh gave us instructions.
In those instructions in Leviticus, it says no blood, no fat.
No rare steak?
No rare steak. Get rid of that blood. Eat whatever you kill within 3 days. Go ahead.
So eating foods with a face was not God's original design for the human race. This little guy says, I vote you eat more fruits and veggies. Okay.
You know, you think about that plan of in Genesis 1:29. 912 years was the average lifespan. And people were not weak. They were strong. You look at anything that people did in life, they were strong. Look at Noah and his family building the ark. I mean, that wasn't light-duty stuff. So they had to be strong. And there's a lot of power in this food that he's given us.
So are you saying if they start eating more like this, we can all build an ark?
Maybe, if we need to.
Okay. All right. And according to the Bible, there are 8 doctors of health. Proper rest. Most people do not sleep the right number of hours. And if they do, they're not into the REM deep sleep that they need to be. And it really is devastating to your health. So whether you're sick or you're not sick, we should try to get into a good sleeping pattern, get into the REM deep sleep. Drinking lots of water. Most people are very dehydrated in this world, especially America. So we don't drink enough water. We're very dehydrated. Being temperate means staying away from the things that cause problems. As you learn some of these things that David and I teach, there's many, many professionals out there teaching. And as you learn some of the things that really aren't good for your body, like genetically modified foods, why do you want to keep putting them in? You know? So our hope is that little by little you guys are going to make some changes that are really going to help us and help us get through the end times. There's going to be a lot of things going on in the end times that we're going to need to have those strong bodies. Next.
You know, Sherry talked about genetically modified foods. You take and go back to Genesis 1:29 again, the seed-bearing plants. Okay, we go to the store, we buy grapes with no seeds in them.
Because they're a nuisance.
That's been altered.
Right.
The watermelons with no seeds in them, those have been altered. Stay away from that stuff.
Okay, next. Godly trust. We should be fasting with purpose. As we start this Daniel fast, we do it every year, and we should be doing it not to lose weight, not to, we should be doing it to improve, but do it with a purpose of wanting to understand. Pray for wisdom and understanding like I did in the hospital. Because when God said that he was going to heal him, I believed him. All right, so prayer is going to be really important during that 3-week time. Open air. We want to breathe clean air. We have, a lot of these slides, guys, I could talk a whole hour on each slide because there's so many things and so much depth to it. So we're just kind of highlighting the 8 rules, all right? But open air. You want to take in deep breathing. You want to breathe as deep as you can. Take in a nice deep breath and exhale, all right? And that's going to be really important, if it's clean air. You might have to go to the mountains or something. Sunshine. Well, in Florida, except during the summer, we have lots of sunshine. So you get your vitamin D from the sun, all right? And so that's an important element to have. Next. Daily exercise. Notice the age of these two. See, you're not supposed to sit in a rocking chair once you become in your senior years. So get a bike, get a rebounder, do something, some kind of exercise that you really enjoy. Even, when we're dancing, you can still do things in your seat. You can move, and that's really the point, is that we got to move this body, all right? Nutrition.
Move it or lose it.
We're going to talk a lot about nutrition, about the kinds of things that your body needs and wants. It actually wants healthy food. And the proof of the pudding is when you start checking off symptoms, you're going to agree with us. Next. So why are we sick? One of the biggest reasons is toxicity. There are many, many different things that are toxic to us. Some of them are...
Oh, it's everywhere we go. The air we breathe, the stuff they're putting in the air, the things we eat, all the things that we're contaminants that are put on them, the pesticides and stuff, the hormones that put in a lot of our meats. I mean, it's just everywhere you turn. Yeah. It's just learning what they are and try to do the best you can to stay away from them.
It's interesting. I came home the other day, and we live next door to the Carters. And I had come home, I was late, I took care of my granddaughter, and I walked into our apartment, and I go, David, did you clean something? And he goes, no, and I go, of course not,
Thanks a lot.
And I go, well, maybe Linda did, so I called Linda and said, hey, Linda, I said, did you clean something, maybe in the laundry room or something? She goes, no, and I'm like, boy, I says, I smell something. And then Bill said, you know what? He goes, they sprayed the field across from our house. Mm-hmm. And I smelled it for about 3 hours. My body's that sensitive that I knew something wasn't, I smelled it. So it's interesting how in tune your body will get as you clean out. Obesity, we all should be trying to lose weight. Exercise and intake of food is going to be the most vital. But along with obesity comes a lot of the problems on that sheet of paper we sent out. So the goal is to not have any check marks on that paper. Dehydration, we discussed a little bit. Most people are dehydrated. They drink coffee instead of water. And coffee is a diuretic, so it actually takes the water out of your body. Malnutrition. Can you be malnutritioned on the standard American diet?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. And most people are. If we tested you, it would show that so many of you are malnutrition. Even though, in our 20s and 30s, 40s, I don't want to go much further, we thought we were eating healthy. We really were. We hardly ever ate fried food. We didn't eat much meat, even though that was my favorite thing to eat. So many things. And we found out that we were literally malnutritioned, all right? Spiritual. If you have any bitterness, fear, anger, all these things are spiritual disease, and they eat away at you, okay? And what happens is we don't see it. We don't really feel it for quite a long time. But then all of a sudden, that person that you're so angry at, that person's not affected. You are, because you just got diagnosed with something.
We come in here every Shabbat. Shabbat shalom, y'all. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Do we really know what Shabbat shalom means? It's a peace that only the Lord can provide. And if we don't have that peace, okay, if we have the anger, the bitterness, the rage, all these things that go on, our bodies turn acidic. Mm-hmm. And acidity, in order for our bodies to heal, we have to be alkaline and oxygenated. If you're oxygenated and alkaline, disease cannot grow in your body. Cannot grow, you know? So we need that peace that God promises us.
Inactivity.
Well, excuse me, one more thing. The peace and rest. And rest was part of what she was talking about. And if you don't get the rest, it's hard to get rest without having peace. You know? So if you get peace and rest, you're going to heal.
Do we have any Israelite couch potatoes here? Don't raise your hand. Inactivity is a very big thing. You know, people become very inactive because we're just too busy. You know, it's very difficult going to work, trying to get to the gym. You know, sometimes you have to go at 4 o'clock in the morning. He goes to work at 4:30 in the morning. You know, Tom does as well. And I think, Mike, I think you do too. You know, 5:30. Okay.
Slouching.
Yeah, he's slouching. Yeah. But, you know, it's very hard to fit that in, but it's really necessary. And then I think the biggest one is stress. What are some stressors? Pastor Nick, you must have a little stress. None. Okay.
What are stress? People.
It could be your spouse. It could be work. It could be, there's lots of giggles over
Finances.
in the Puerto Rican section.
Finances.
Finances is big. You know, there's so many things that stress us, and we can stress ourselves. If you've got a little ADD in you, you know, it's very easy to get stressed. All right? So we have to manage our stress. You know, the fork could be our biggest enemy. It's what are you putting on that fork? Because if you can think of it as every time you put your fork in food, is it going to nourish me or is it going to cause problems? And we'll go over some of those problems next. We're going to talk about Leviticus 17:11. The life is in the blood. How many of you have heard that statement, whether it's from us or somebody else? Okay. Anybody in the medical field knows this. They know that the life is in the blood. This is a picture of an artery with your cells. And if you look at the first one, this is prior to a fatty meal consisting of maybe hamburger, french fries, and a shake. We won't mention any names.
You should see this on a live slide. It is awesome.
It is awesome. It also could be bacon, eggs, and butter. Okay? So before that consumption of that food, look at the cells. They're just right in the river of life. They're all kind of separated, and there's no highway collisions. All right? But look at 1 hour after that high-fat meal. They start clumping up together. Look at 4 hours. And at 6 hours, you've got a highway catastrophe going on in your blood. Now, that is not a picture of health. It takes 12 hours for the blood to return to normal. We had 2 nurses come through our center. And you want to tell them the story?
Yeah, I kind of like this one. 2 nurses came through the center, and we showed this slide in a video, and it showed a doctor, anesthesiologist, who had had a guy who was in an accident. So he came in and drew this blood, put it up on the counter, went back to the blood, and it had separated with thick, fat, greasy, yellow sludge in his blood. And both of the girls, we've never seen that before, because in most surgeries, they have you fast first for that 12 hours so that your blood is clear.
Right.
Okay? And they hadn't seen it because this guy had just come in an emergency. But amazing what can happen in the blood.
Right. So it isn't God's intention that we sludge up our highway. All right? Next. We want to talk about enzymes. I don't think we really talked at any length before on enzymes. Enzymes are catalysts. They're activators that make food work synergistically together. And it's to run your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your muscles, okay? And without these enzymes present, these are metabolic enzymes. Your body makes them, okay? But the source has to be a living source. It can't make metabolic enzymes out of French fries or potato chips or chili, okay? Chili and cornbread. It has to be living, a living food with the enzymes present.
Well, explain
right?
living.
Living. Living is uncooked, raw, like Genesis 1 talks about. He didn't say eat your fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds cooked. They didn't have cooking back then. So it's very important when you don't get these metabolic enzymes being produced, you start to have heart problems, brain problems, might be your memory. Your muscles start tightening up, or they're real flabby. They're not working right. The kidneys you might start urinating too much. There's a lot, it won't detoxify the body like it's supposed to. Okay, so keep that in mind, metabolic. We'll go to the next slide and learn about generic enzymes. So these are where the generic enzymes come from. Now, when eaten or juiced, and we're going to go into some juicing later, your body converts the generic enzymes from the foods into metabolic enzymes. Mm-hmm. So now your heart, your kidneys, your brain, and your muscles will work better. You cannot make metabolic enzymes from junk food or from cooked dead food. We're not saying that you can't ever eat cooked food again, but a balance. Start eating more of the raw foods with the generic enzymes, and your body is going to work much better. Mm-hmm. And you will be happy for it. You won't feel like you're getting old, all right? Living foods are needed daily. Not just once a week. The only thing that restaurants really do right is they serve you a salad before your meal. But a lot of people say, nah, hold the salad. I don't want to waste it. I only have so much room in my stomach. So, but that is the one thing that restaurants do correctly.
There'll be sometimes I'll eat a cooked meal at night and not have any raw. And my stomach just does not feel right. And I'll go grab an orange or something, and the raw food settles my stomach, starts working properly, and things are better.
Yeah, and do that. One time I worked with this lady that she was eating, she had a drawer that she was supposed to keep all the work files in. And one day I needed to get something, and I opened the drawer, and she was sitting right there, and her whole drawer was full of junk food. And I went, oh my. I can't believe it. So she had come in, she had eaten some kind of fast food breakfast. At about 11 o'clock, she had some kind of cake. There was cake in the kitchen. Then in the afternoon, she went to lunch, and about 2 o'clock, she says, man, I am starving. I just cannot figure it out.
She had the munchies.
She had the munchies. And what happened was, she says, well, you're the health nut around here. She goes, what do you think it is? And I says, well, do you really want the answer? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I haven't seen you eat one thing that's living. I said, I have an apple in the fridge. Go down and eat the apple and then tell me how you feel. She thought she had a tapeworm. So she ate the apple, and she goes, I hate to admit, about 20 minutes later, I hate to admit this to you, but I really feel like I'm satisfied now. She was not satisfied because her cells were screaming out for something living. Okay, there are two eating styles, junk food and health food. Most of our kids going to college, hint, hint, okay, are going to be faced with a challenge in getting healthy, good food. The dorms are small. Even if you live off campus, you have a little better shot, because you got a kitchen usually. But I know my nephew tells me, how difficult it is. But it's really important. The same nephew, he is a sport jock, and he drinks carrot juice almost every day. and he excels so much in the sports, they want to know, they think he's taking drugs, okay? And he goes, no, it's carrot juice, okay? Because his body functions so well because he's slamming his body with this juice, and it's all living enzymes. Most people perceive healthy food as boring. How many, and you can raise your hand, how many think, from what you know, that healthy food is going to taste boring? Well, these people are too educated here.
People,
yeah, there's a couple honest people. Yeah, but you know, we're going to have a class, a culinary class in September, and we're hopefully going to teach some of you that healthy food tastes great. It's all in how you prepare it, and it's getting educated. Because if you're going to talk about just sitting there and eating a salad with some dressing on it, yeah, that's pretty boring. But that's not what we eat. We eat all kinds of different things, and I've learned how to master that kitchen.
You know, Sherry used to cook me some pretty good meals, but she had 4 spices in the
Used to?
fridge. Yeah. And during that time, of those 4 spices, 2 were salt and pepper. So she didn't have a whole lot of spices.
That's true.
Now she has cabinets full of spices.
Yeah,
That worked
I even
great.
had to get one of those layered shelves, you know, just to keep up with all the spices. So I want you to picture your enzymes as an internal bank. All right? So you have so many enzymes when you're born. And this is why babies can stay alive on processed dry milk, okay, instead of mother's milk. Why do they stay alive? Because they have this internal bank with so many enzymes when they start out. But every time they have a bottle, or every time one of us eats cooked food, the bank account has a withdrawal. Every time we eat living food from Genesis 1:29, we've made a deposit into the bank. Mm-hmm. So it is a constant checkbook in your inside. We need to put more deposits than we need withdrawals, and that's where the living food comes in. With little or no deposits, the body starts to break down. And essentially, you start an aging process, and you age much faster. You know, most people find it hard to believe I'm 90. You know. You know. But anyway, but think about it. If people are eating 3 cooked meals and 2 snack meals, and they're all cooked, your body is aging, and your bank account is being depleted. So think about that. When there is disease present, there is a lack of enzymes in that system, in that organ, or in that tissue. So if it's heart disease, there's a lack of enzymes in your heart. I'm not saying there's other causes. That's just one, okay? If it's your memory, there's a lack of enzymes. I know for a fact that there's a lack of oxygen going to the brain when somebody is dealing with memory problems. The reason I know this is because my mom had Alzheimer's disease. And I took care of her for 12 years. And she ended up falling, fracturing her back, and I had to put her in a nursing home. And I had her on the Hallelujah diet. And she improved, all right? And she actually started remembering things. Her skills were better. The games that she played, she could do better. She didn't know me when she came to me, but in 2 months, she knew who I was. Until the day things started getting worse, and then she thought Dave was her husband, and that caused a few problems.
Your point.
But anyway, when she went to the nursing home, I noticed within 2 months she started declining. And even though I was making sure she was still getting something called Barley Max and carrot juice every day, I took her out of the nursing home, and I brought her to I think it was a chiropractor. And what she did was she was doing some cranial, which is kind of moving your tissue and your brains and stuff like this. And my mother had not talked to me for years. And when the lady was working up here in the upper part of the neck, she went like this and she says, wow, she says, there's the oxygen flowing to the brain. And at the very minute she said that, my mother sat up and she looked at me. I was at her feet. And she goes, Sherry, where have you been? And I'm like, Mom, where have you been? But do you know the doctors didn't want to hear it? I told them about it. I had it recorded. And I was so excited. I went to her doctors. I said, she needs more oxygen. But it's a delicate situation because even if she got that therapy all the time, there was so much damage. By that point, it wouldn't have held. But again, she needed more enzymes. Okay, next slide. This is a study from the 1940s, a Dr. Pottinger. He took 900 cats and he divided them into 2 groups. It's the only study that we know about that was a living food, dead food study. And what he did, he divided them into 5 groups. And he fed half of the group cooked food, and then he fed the other half raw food. The first generation, they were healthy offspring, but prone to disease later in life, the ones on the cooked food. The second generation started to show health concerns in the middle of their life. The third generation, the illness was in the beginning of the life. Some died at birth, and they had problems reproducing. 1/3 of our adults today are having problems reproducing. That doesn't seem to apply in this church. Okay, we're raising up the next generation. By the 4th generation, they did not exist. So does that have significance for today? I think it does, because our children are getting diagnosed with adult diseases. And it's shocking. At the Lifestyle Center, the first half of the time that we were there, we noticed mostly baby boomers were coming to us. So it was like, you know, the 60-year-olds, the 70-year-olds, even 80. We even had 94-year-olds. But it was predominantly baby boomers. But then the next half, the next 7 years, we started seeing kids with cancer, with digestive problems, with memory problems, with all kinds of the same things that we were dealing with the oldies. Thanks, I needed that. So I think it has significance for today. Next slide. Our children are dealing with obesity, digestive problems, infertility, ADD. There was that lady, she had a 7-year-old boy. She was a worship leader at another church. And she had a little boy who she called Mad Scotty. Mm. And Mad Scotty used to throw fits. And, you know, she says, I think something's in him. You know, I think there's something wrong with him. And I said, no, we won't go there. I says, let's just try to see if his diet has anything to do with it. This child would be an angel one day, and then the next day he would go off and slam his head into a wall or hit her or all kinds of things. And she was desperate. I wouldn't let the kid come, by the way. You know, so I says, only the mommy can come. And so I told her that what I thought the problem was processed food. I said, take him off of all processed food and all dairy. And I says, and let's see what happens. In 2 months' time, that kid was an angel again and normal every day. And she was singing praises to the Lord because he directed her to come to us.
And the kid didn't like Mad Scotty.
And yeah, the little boy, she'd say, why do you act this way? And he'd go, I don't know. He didn't know. But he was reacting to a chemical in the foods, in the GMO foods. So probably some of the junk food. Younger and younger kids are being prescribed drugs. Drugs are toxic. We're not saying there's never a point when you need them. Sometimes we need them for a short term. But our children are being pumped with all these drugs today. And sometimes their bodies aren't even developed yet to be able to handle it, to handle the toxic load. They're drinking caffeinated drinks. You know, there's a company out there that's made it very popular to drink all these fancy things with cream on top and caramel and chocolate and nuts and, well, the nuts are good for you. You know, and I'm seeing kids this big. You know, they're drinking these drinks, and the caffeine is souping these kids up. And then they go to school, and the teacher says, oh, they're misbehaved. You know, maybe they need Ritalin, you know. Okay, studies show that overweight children are 2 to 3 times more likely to have high blood pressure. When there's an autopsy performed on 3-year-olds, they already have the start of heart disease. This is, you know, anybody that's in the medical field will shake their head yes. They know that we're talking the truth here. More kids are diagnosed with high fat levels in their blood and inflammation. If we're supposed to be raising up the next generation, we need to be the example to these kids that we have to teach them what is good food, what's bad food. A few years ago, David and I spoke at Mackinac Island, and that's the place where Christopher Reeves made a famous movie, Somewhere in Time. Anybody remember that? It's my favorite old movie. Yeah. And so we went there, and we were on a speaking circuit with Jared Sessler. He was a NASCAR race car driver, and he was diagnosed with advanced melanoma cancer. He was given a 5% chance to live, and we were on a speaking circuit with him. And we went to see the movie that night together, and we were sitting with Jared and his family. He had his kids with him. And during one of the breaks, this little boy, he was about 5 years old, he went running to the back. The butler or whatever he was came out with a big tray of goodies. And the little boy picked up a bag of chips or something, and he runs over and he hands it to his daddy with the cutest little face, you know, and I'm sitting there right next to him watching, and the father picks it up, and he reads the ingredients, and he looks down at the little boy and shakes his head no. And this little boy, what do you think he did? He skipped back with the bag of chips, put it back in there, and came back and sat down next to his father. And I looked at Jared and I says, where did you get him?
He taught him, though. He taught him that wasn't food. And
the reason was that he had had a very bad reaction to MSG. And this little boy now knows that he can't have anything with MSG in it. So it just shows we need to educate. The next slide. According to the CDC, Center for Disease Control, 1 in 6 children are overweight. Look at the choices they have. I think I'm on the wrong slide. Can we go back one? Yeah, thank you. They have all these choices, whether it's school, nursery school, daycare, all the outings. It's like we wanna reward our children with all the bad food that's out there, you know. And some of it is fine, you know, but it should be once in a while a treat. God gave us something like 20,000 sweet taste buds, but He didn't say that we had to use it all up in a week. You know, we're supposed to have a treat once in a while. But this problem with our kids and our adults is due to low nutrient diets and a lack of activity. Those are the 2 main things. We have a very high sugar intake, the coffee drinks and processed food. A lot of times that's all people eat.
I think it goes back to the living enzymes. If we don't have the living enzymes, we want to pick. And what are we going to pick on? Something sweet.
and something that's fast. You know, we don't want to take the time to cut up a bunch of carrots. You know, so it's a convenience thing sometimes. We need to teach our kids the quality of food. You know, what is quality? You have to, most of us would say, children, you have to eat all your supper before you get dessert, right? But what are we giving them? You know, there's a multitude of different things that we could give them. We make great desserts, but they're healthy, and we don't use sugar. You know, we use agave, we use dates. Medjool dates are the best, especially if you can get them from Israel. You know, they're just awesome. All right, so this class that we have coming up, we're going to teach you how to use some of these things. There's also some paperwork out there that give you some helpful hints during the Daniel fast. Okay, the next slide. This is an example of alkaline food. David mentioned before that we need to keep our body alkaline. Okay, 7.4 is the magic number. Mm-hmm. But there's two categories of food. There's alkaline food, and then there's acidic food. What do you think cooked food is? Acidic. The raw food on this slide shows you what the alkaline food is, whether you juice it or whether you eat it raw. Okay, so there's many things you can do with raw food by using different machines. And the machines will make it, like for instance, I make a pudding, which is made out of mango, pineapple, and collards. Now, the first time I saw that prepared, I went, oh, you've got to be kidding. You know, and
collards, really?
And one lady at the center said to us, don't you serve anything that's not green? You know, but she tasted that pudding, and she said, oh my goodness, that is the most delicious pudding. And there was no preservatives, and the sugar came from the fruit, okay? But she got her greens in there with the collards.
And we grew the collards.
And we grew the collards, yeah. Right. So the more alkaline your body, the easier it is to lose weight. That's why the Daniel fast, you start losing some pounds. The problem is we go on the Daniel fast, and we can't wait for the 3 weeks to be over. And then, look, see, there they go again. You know, you know, the three weeks, and then we're like, I can't wait to go back to what we did before.
Sounds like Egypt.
I think he's finding that a little funny. Okay, now the acidic foods, the next slide. This is an example of acidic foods. They cause inflammation. They start a process in the body of cell death. It's like it's a necrotic state. Your cells actually start to die, okay? And that's hard for us to imagine because we don't feel it except through symptoms. 90% of Americans are dehydrated, and it's mostly due to the coffee consumption. Coffee is acidic. Now, I want to point out something. Coffee in itself, actually, I shouldn't say this to you guys because I know you're going to take the 2 inches and make it 10 feet. But yes, I hope you're taking notes. Pastor's writing down notes.
Pastor, we're going to hit you hard with this one.
Yeah, you know, he did tell us to hit you guys hard. I want you to know that. Now, there are some good components to coffee. It's a great antioxidant. However, it's the cream and the sugar that we put in that is causing the problem, okay? But it also is very acidic.
And it constricts the arteries.
It constricts your arteries, causes high blood pressure. There's a million things. I mean, we can make almost any food look bad, but we're trying to stay somewhat positive. Okay. But honestly, you know, during the Daniel fast, we give up the coffee. And most of you, what happens to you? As soon as you give up that coffee, within 12 hours, headache. What do you think that's telling you? You know, it's honestly saying that you have an addiction to the caffeine. Okay, so your body is telling you. However, it's an enjoyable beverage for most people. all right, whether it's cold, whether it's hot. But there's things that you can do at home to substitute. Pizza, everybody loves pizza. I make the best pizza with my own crust and with my own ingredients, and it will super beat any pizza that you eat out there, okay? And these are things that we should try to learn how to do, just to start eating healthier. But all these foods are acidic. Cooked food, the burgers, the fry, all the typical fast food things, and all the bottles, the cans, the jars, oh my. I learned that from Mr. Joel over there in the front. You know, there is soda. You know, we're drinking soda instead of water. And I think the biggest thing with coffee, too, is it a diuretic. So what it's doing every time you drink it, it's depleting your body from water, and that's why most of us are dehydrated. Next.
You know, another thing I just brought to mind was I used to get kidney stones. Anybody ever had a kidney stone? They are painful, and haven't had one since been on this lifestyle.
Yeah, I got to tell you this.
Go ahead.
We went to Massachusetts, that's where we're from originally, and David ended up with a kidney stone. We didn't know what was the matter with him. We were out for breakfast with our kids, and so one of my kids is a nurse, and she's like, "Oh, we got to call an ambulance," and I could see the hospital. It was right here. And so I just pushed him in the back seat and threw him in the car. I said, "No, I'm driving him to the hospital." And so my daughter comes in, and we're in the hospital, and he's screaming. And the nurse comes in and says, "Honey," she says, "I've had a baby, and I've had kidney stones." And she goes, "I'd much rather have a baby." You know, she goes, "I really feel for you." So as a nurse, my daughter has dealt with a lot of people that have been sick, and she's listening to Dave, and he's going, "Golly." And my daughter goes, "Not once in 15 years of being a nurse have I heard someone say golly when they have a kidney stone." But you know, this is a great man I have here. Okay, look at some of the symptoms of coffee overdose. If you just drink 1 or 2 a day, you probably won't get some of these, but take a look at some of them. You know, you can have visual impairment, ringing in the ears. You can have muscular problems, respiratory problems, shortness of breath, high blood pressure. Your central nervous system can be affected, and definitely your heart, and even some gastric problems. You could have nausea, you could have vomiting. And people never associate with your coffee. One time I was in the hospital, and I had surgery, and this nurse comes in, and I said, "Oh, I need something." I said, I've got the most massive headache. And she goes, "You drink coffee?" And I says, "No." And she goes, "Do you drink Coke?" I go, "Yeah." It was the Coke. You know, it wasn't something to do with the surgery. It was the Coke. So, chocolate. Chocolate is also has an awful lot of caffeine in it as well. Next slide. Our body needs to be 7.4 alkaline. There's a little alkalinity chart there, and it shows you the neutral. We used to test people when they came to the center. Guess what number most people were? 3 to 5. If I tested you guys today, that I would be willing to bet a very large amount of money I don't have on the fact that you would be in that range, okay? We really should be at that 7.4. That's what you shoot for. It's in the fluids, tissues, and systems. Our blood plasma and interstitial fluids surrounded our cells are the most sensitive to this factor. This girl, she owned the California Lifestyle Center, just like David and I. And at 32, she was diagnosed with inoperable stage 2 cervical cancer. She started out doing chemo and radiation, and she didn't do it very long because she got burned so severely that she couldn't function for about a year and a half. She started researching alternative methods, found that if she went to the doctor and says, is it true that if I alkalize my body and oxygenate my body that the cancer can't survive in that environment? And he goes, yes, that's right. Now, when are we going to start back on chemo? And she says, no, you just gave me my answer. I'm going to oxygenate my body, and I'm going to alkalize my body. She set out to do it. It took her 18 months. To this day, she's cancer-free. She still has this lifestyle. She teaches classes like I do, and she's as healthy can be. Mm-hmm. Okay? If you eat too much acid and too little alkaline food, your body has to steal alkaline substances from your own body. The main place it goes is your bones. So if you're facing osteoporosis, that's what's happening to you. Your body is leaching the alkalinity from your bones, and you're starting to break down. Remember the metabolic enzymes. Okay, next.
You know, in the Bible it talks about the drying of the bones. I think that might have something to do with it, huh? Osteoporosis.
Healthy cells. If you get anything today, this is really important, okay? It's all important. But we have 100 trillion living cells. 300 million cells reproducing every minute. So think about that, okay? Your cells make up your tissue makes up your organs, and your organs make up your body's systems. We have 9 systems, I believe. Your cells are made up of, guess what? What you eat and drink. So what are your cells made of? What do you want them to be made of? See, God had a plan in the beginning, and he told us what would be the best to make our body work the way he designed it to work. Mm-hmm. He didn't design disease for us. He doesn't want us to be sick. You know, so he gave us a plan. And you know, it says Jesus is the Word. He spoke, right? He spoke wellness into our life. There's so many verses out there that he wants us to live in health. But we live in a world that's pretty bad. I'm not pointing the finger at each individual. I'm saying there's many things coming at us. Some of it's spiritual, some of it's the body. We're body, mind, and spirit. So we're being bombarded by that enemy that wants to destroy us.
You know, we have such an awesome self-healing body that you could put something pretty bad into your body and it would take care of it. But when we keep on bombarding it every day, I mean, your body's going to wear out.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the repetitive, you know, assaults, so to speak. Cells need oxygen, water, nutrients, waste elimination, freedom from poison, and all these things are really vital to our body working right. There are at least 12 studies which clearly show that diet influences the DNA repair and 50-plus generic diseases. They've proved it. Science has proved it. And the more that it's fought out there, the more proof that comes about. So it's vital that we start to make changes as we understand these things. You know, and don't give up. Just start somewhere.
And to teach our next generation.
And to teach the next generation. That's right. By the way, if your kids get, you know, a little bit rambunctious or, you know, because you start feeding them all this living food, they will have a lot of energy, probably more than what they have now. But as I understand it, you know, you could just ship off a few of them to the plumber house, and he'll never notice. Next. We used to take people shopping, and we would tell them, shop the outside aisles. You know, the stuff in the middle, guys, there's no living food in the middle. It's all dead, boxed, canned, jarred, labeled food. God's food really doesn't have labels. And that's what we should primarily be after, is as much of that food as we can get in. The juicing will actually cut down the amount that you have to eat, which we'll talk about.
A lot of times we need something in our mouth, and it's not food, it's water.
That's true.
We get that craving.
Yeah, sometimes we're just thirsty. Next. This guy has a green thumb. And we haven't had a green thumb since we closed the center. So we're hoping for the fall that we can start back up. But he built these raised beds like the bottom middle. And we supplied all the kale and the collards and all the greens that we would use in our juices for our guests. So we would have anywhere from, say, 4 to 13 guests at a time. And we would be preparing juice for 16 people because we included staff. And each bunch of kale cost about $4 for organic kale. We never had to pay it because we grew it. And it grows great in Florida. In the summer, he built this thing that looked like we had 4 covered wagons in our backyard. And it kept the sun filtered. So we had kale year-round. We also used to take people to a strawberry plant, and they used to pick strawberries. Plant City's known for strawberries. But we should be learning to grow our own veggies. Again, with the things that are coming around the corner with the end times, we may need to be growing our food.
You know, with those raised beds, it was so easy to do, you know, not a lot of bending over and stuff, and it was so peaceful out in the garden. You know, I can just picture back in the day.
And I don't like to get dirty, so you know, so my job was to look out the kitchen window and see the stuff grow. I was amazed. I had never seen that. Okay, and then I got to go pick fresh salad greens every day. I mean, it was really great. I worked so hard. Okay, next. If you was to ask me what I think the most important thing we could do, and especially during the Daniel fast, I would tell you juicing. The reason is the first few days is torture for you guys, okay? The juicing actually helps to get those cells, the generic cells, into your body, and it tastes good. Now, the first time David had juice, he didn't like it very much. And I cried. I said, but Dave, they said you have to drink juice, you know? And I went down to a local store and I bought him carrot juice. Carrot juice in itself, to me today, is way too sweet. Okay, I like it with the greens in it. But in the beginning, you know, maybe for taste bud reasons, straight carrot juice. I gave it to him, and he goes, I can't do this. And I go, you have to. They say you won't get well. You know, and so he started to try to drink it. He couldn't do it. Then one day, he had some leftovers, so I put it in the fridge. The next day, he drank it, and it was ice cold. And he goes, hey, this stuff isn't bad. So
that was the difference.
Yeah, that was the difference. Another thing to keep in mind, when you are juicing, your body actually assimilates 92% of the nutrients. So when you eat it, you only get about 30, 35, somewhere in that range. So because you're chewing it, you're breaking it down, it has to go through digestion. Juicing, it doesn't have to go through digestion. It goes into the stomach, out the stomach wall, and directly to the organs that need help, and directly to the cells. So it's the quickest way to get well. Sometimes when people have a lot of health challenges, I will tell them, keep a food log for me, and then they'll take the food log, and then we start introducing the juicing. And I'll tell them to go on a 5-day juice fast. 5 days. Now, look at Mike's having, I don't want to speak that. He is really upset. You know, a juice fast you'll detox very quickly, but all of a sudden you're going to start having energy, usually by the day 3. Even at the center, people still ate 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day, but then they juiced. And so the juicing is what really is going to help you.
You wouldn't believe most Wednesdays at the Lifestyle Center.
The
Unbelievable.
Next slide. If we could only do one supplement, this is the supplement we would use. It is called Barley Max. It's a dehydrated barley, baby barley, and alfalfa green. There is no gluten in it. Sometimes people hear the word barley and they think there's gluten. But what this is a non-GMO, no sugar. It's organic. It increases your energy. And to me, it's the greatest supplement there is. It's a superfood. If you've ever heard, people talk about superfoods. We have it in a regular flavor and a berry flavor. And we're going to show you a video. It's about 2 minutes. And I want you to understand, I'm not knocking wheatgrass in this. My husband, for the very first time, tries something green, and it was wheatgrass. And his reaction's very comical. And this came out much better than I thought it would. And but wheatgrass honestly has a lot of great components. But what we do personally is we do the Barley Max and maybe do it for a couple months, but then we do a short period of wheatgrass because there's other components that are really good, and it's very alkaline for your body. So is that video ready? This is in California. We went under disguise to a place that was like ours. Nick is about to enjoy his first wheatgrass, and oh, look at that! He downed it all at once. How is it, Dave? It can't be that bad.
Bad.
She's trying to kill me.
Oh, Dave. So.
What hurts is I made it.
So you may have that reaction is why we showed you that video. But honestly, well, the Barley Max is a little easier, I think. But honestly, both of them have great healing components. They use wheatgrass. They put it on your eye as a compress. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can be done. Enemas. We haven't done that one yet. Anyway, next. Here is some of the food that we have. The top one is manicotti. It's raw. The top right one is fettuccine, which is cooked, and the rest of it's raw. That's a pate on the bottom, which we use like a meat substitute. Some of those things will be in the culinary class. I want to point out, I'm running out of time, but this is arthritis. There's your femur bone and your tibia bone. And that red line in the middle, what that is your arteries. And with the arteries, the cells, you'll notice how they're separated, okay? The question of the day is, how can I make my joints last as long as I do, okay? So you want to make sure that your joints are lasting. One of the problems that we have is that you can see the cartilage in between, and on the right side you see rheumatoid arthritis. Next slide. The blood flows by the joint to maintain the cartilage nutrition. The good nutrition needs to go across the synovial membrane and into the joint space. So the good nutrition needs to go into that area, and the waste product needs to come out. But the problem is, due to lack of nutrients in your food or lack of exercise, that cushion, that cartilage, can't function. So what it starts to do is deteriorate. And then pretty soon you're told that you have a torn meniscus, or you're told that you need knee replacement. All right? And it really boils down to the fact that you're not getting the proper nutrition and you're not getting the waste out. Next slide. Water functions like a shock absorber. It lubricates and nourishes the cartilage. So again, if you're not drinking water or if you're overdoing the acidic foods and drinks, you're causing this problem called rouleau. So if you see above the little cartoon knee, that rouleau, the cells are starting to back up. And that is caused by inflammatory foods. So those foods are actually causing a great deal of problem.
And sugar is your biggest inflammatory.
Right. Sugar is a huge inflammatory. If you have aches and pains, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be due to sugar. Let's see. I'm just going to have to skip through some of these. Colon. Okay. The colon, the first half of your colon is to reduce the amount of matter by absorbing the water and needed nutrients. The job of the last half of the colon is to transmit and dispose of the waste material. These systems don't work without fiber and water. It's vital that those two things. Where does the fiber come from? It comes from the alkaline foods. Steak and chicken and fish and all these meats do not have fiber in them. So I'm not saying you can't have them. I'm saying less of them. The next slide. Dehydration. Here's a good way to kind of tell if you're dehydrated. Lift the skin on your hand, and if it bounces back, you're pretty hydrated. If it stays up there, you need to drink more water. Probiotics and digestive enzymes are really suggested if you have digestive problems. So you can get a good probiotic out there or digestive enzyme, especially when you eat cooked food. If you eat something that's cooked, then add a digestive enzyme in it, and it will give you those little bit of extra enzymes to help you digest that cooked food. Next, this is a product that we have called Fiber Cleanse. And what it is, we recommend people when they first change their diet to go on that for a couple months. And that will brush clean your colon, get rid of the old stuff, get rid of the toxins. It kills parasites. A lot of times we have parasites that we pick up just from drinking water somewhere. If you travel, you go to any other country, including Israel, you can pick up, parasites because it's different water than what we're used to.
And don't think it's just drinking the water. Okay? If you rinse your vegetables in the water, well, guess what? Parasites are there.
Okay, advance to the Daniel fast. This fast should consecrate time for the Lord and to ask God for wisdom, understanding, and direction in life. It should be a spiritual exercise for us. And we do it every year, sometimes twice a year. But this is an opportunity for you to just really take the ball and run with this. Ask God for wisdom and understanding during the process. I'm going to have to go to fast with purpose and benefits. It detoxifies the body. It boosts your immune system, lowers your triglycerides and cholesterol, clearer thinking, curbs addictions, controls sugar addiction, lose weight, lower your blood pressure, fight inflammation, improve digestion. These are some of the physical things that can actually help you. Some of you, next slide, you're going to experience things like heartburn, constipation, emotional swings. Next slide. Acne, headaches, probably due to the coffee, gas and bloating, being lethargic.
Good news is that's only a couple of days usually.
Usually, yeah, just a few days. Let's go down to the week 1. Every year, this is what we hear. Week 1, I think this healthy food's making me sick. I have a headache. I'm so tired, I just want to sleep. I'm spending so much time in the bathroom. I'm having caffeine headaches. And I'm bloated, I have gas, and I'm constipated. I'm not speaking that into my future. Okay, so week 2. Israelites are feeling fantastic. It's Israel or bust. Better digestion, more energy, symptoms are improving, you're losing a little weight, you're sleeping better, the belly bloat is gone, you're hearing more clearly from Yahweh. Okay? I mean, you're starting to feel fantastic. By now, your little list should be really some of the things you're going to check off. And you're going to be able to say, hey, you know, I don't have that anymore. Week 3, just like the Israelites, we want to return to Egypt. We can't wait for the fast to be over. I'm so excited to have my favorite cup of coffee. Sirloin steak, here I come. Why are we so excited to get back to the habits that caused us to experience the symptoms that we have on that piece of paper? Just like the Israelites, we want to return to Egypt. This year, I'm going to challenge you guys to stay, maybe not on the whole, Daniel fast, but to start eating more raw foods. Start learning. We have a class coming up. I want to read this. It's important. 1 Samuel, God's word is living. Okay? He says, long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that's yours. He wants us to be healthy. He doesn't want us to be sick. How can we be used in the kingdom of God if we're not healthy? If we're sick and we're feeling lousy, we don't feel like doing anything. And then usually our prayer life gets tanked out. I mean, we just, and then we have the biggest pity party that anybody could have. He says, I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life. We have something in the palm of our hands that we're offering to you guys on how to improve wherever you are. Wherever you are in that aging process. We're all going to get older, guys. And, just because you eat all fruits and vegetables doesn't mean you can avoid everything.
Yeah, but let's
you
not rush
have
it.
a less chance, so your odds get a lot better. We are having a culinary class here in September. We will be charging for it. It's $34.95. It will be in the fellowship hall behind us from 1 to 4. We will teach you how to use the different appliances. You'll get to sample the foods, including that pudding I told you about. So there are some magazines out in the console in the back. You're free to take one. It is full of really good information.
It really is.
Okay?
Make sure you get one.
It tells you, make sure you get one. It tells you all kinds of really cool stuff. There's some online help that you can get too. And let's see, I think that's about it. I don't think we have time for questions.
No.
What was that? The date of the class is September 16th from 1 to 4. And there's a sign-up sheet out there. It's a prepay thing. So if you don't want to do it right now, you can always call me later. But there is a sign-up sheet. So it'll be exciting. We've done these many times before. Everybody loves them. So we will definitely be glad to show you how to make this easier. Every class we take, it gets a little bit easier. So I want to thank you guys for having us. And I'm looking forward to hearing testimonies about the Daniel fast. So thank you so much.